Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
What's up, Mysonne Lennon? How you doing today?
I am blessed and highly favored, Tamika D. Mallory. How are you?
Fine, doing fine. Celebrating my granddaughter's second birthday, which is really, they grow so fast. Yeah, she's definitely growing fast. She's growing fast, and she has taken on the personality of a lot of us. I can't just say her parents because I can see myself as well. She really does not like to be touched or talked to too much. And I can say that I'm kind of like that. So, she's not really antisocial. She's fine once she gets calm and she's good. She'll move all around. She'll talk. She'll sing. She dance. She just doesn't want you to put your physical hands on her. And she doesn't want
so she already a germaphobe. She already know you got germs. She learned from you already. Huh?
She just doesn't want you to do too much. That's it. Like, she wants everything to be demure already. At her little bitty age, she's like, but then again, she's not that demure because she know how to get up under stuff and things. She's just different. She's different. She has many different personalities because I think all of us, we have different things going on. She could be very jovial and sweet and happy and laughing and whatnot. But if you start touching her, she's like, no, I'm not into that. So it's interesting to watch her grow up. But I will say that it's also just kind of interesting. I feel like for me as a parent well, first of all, the one other than Blair turning 2, the other thing that happened in my life in the last few days is I had a conversation with the legal department of my publishing company for my new book. And the woman was like, listen, this book is amazing. I read it. It's the second or maybe the third person from the publishing company who really doesn't have like a stake in the game. Like, they don't. It's up to you. This is your book. This is what you want to say, obviously, between yourself and whatever your whoever your support team, management, and your particular publishing brand, like Black Privilege Publishing is my particular publishing company. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's another word for it, but it escapes me at this moment. But I'm as long as Charlemagne is happy with the content and the editor, obviously, who is there, shout out to Nick, to monitor what is in the content that's in there. As long as they are okay with it, the legal team's responsibility is to look at it to make sure that there's no reason why you're going to get in trouble, right? And so, when I was speaking to her today, and she was like, listen, the last couple of days, and she was like, oh, the book is really, really good. And a few other people said the same thing that have responsibilities like printing. Like, they don't have anything to really do with it, but they just went through it because they saw it and they read it. And she asked me, hey, is everybody in your life okay with the things that you're saying in this book? And as she was saying that to me, I was just thinking about like all the different personalities and the stories, and I can see where my granddaughter picks up so much from us over the years, over time. My sister, my attitude, Sharon is very particular, and you can already see that Blair is going in that direction. And one of the other things in the book that kind of like, I write a lot about the challenges that I face with being a young mother, the things that I wish I could go back and do. So now here I am getting an opportunity to try to make right on some of the things that I didn't know and didn't do properly back in the other days, 25 years ago. And I look at her and I'm just like, wow, I'm actually able to monitor like the seconds, which is very different from when you're raising a kid and you're 20-something years old yourself. You're trying to take on chunks of life at a time. Like, got to figure out where I'm going to work, got to figure out where I'm going to live, got to figure out all of that. And now I'm not in that situation. So I'm actually able to sit there and look at her little bitty details, her little bitty self in the seconds. And it's just very, very, it's very interesting. I'll just say that. But, like I said, the lawyer was like, is everybody okay with this? 'Cause she's like, well, you wrote in here some stuff about your mom and your relationship with her. I'm like, oh, yeah, my mother stands by everything she said, everything she did. And my granddaughter seems like she's going to be a little bit like my mama.
No, I mean, that sounds interesting because I be feeling the same way like when I talk to my grandson and I just look at him. You just able to you see things from a different lens than when you just a young parent and you just raising a kid and this and that. Now you have a lot more experience, right? So you see certain things. You see yourself, you see them, you see certain personalities, you see certain things that you need to guide, you need to get in front of, so it's a way different perspective.
Yeah, it's very different. It's true. And you're more mature. Exactly. You see things you need to get in front of. You do. And so I'm not upset with her for not wanting people to touch her. I hope she maintains that for a real long time. But the way in which she responds about it, we have to figure out how to let her know, like, you don't just go slap the person over the head or knock their hand off. You kind of have to learn how to be able to articulate. She's only 2, I get it. But now that I'm older, I realize only 2 is not, my grandmother was on it at only 2. Right, so at only 2.
You remember 2? I don't remember 2.
Well, it's not that I remember when I was 2, but I remember how she dealt with all the 2-year-olds coming.
Okay. That makes
and
sense.
I specifically know how my aunts, who were like my grandmothers, because they're much older women, how even with my son at 2 years old, they were like, we don't do this, we don't do that. He needs to learn how to sit down, like actually, and that was a thing that they really worked on. And I would always say, you know how you get mad at your family's house and leave.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I pack my son up and be like, we're not staying over here with all of this attitude. Like he can't run around. He runs around, like that's what he does. He's a boy. But now I understand. Discipline starts at a whole different place, and if you don't do it, then it just gets worse and worse and worse over time. So, but anyway, she's only 2. She's fine. She's cute. She's sweet as pie. She's so sweet. But I just know I'm maturing. It's not even about her in the way in which I see life. So that's what I was doing. I was doing my book, final book, copyright edits, looking over what they suggest, where they made changes, if they made any at all, which is not many. They just help me to, make sure I'm crystallizing my points. And things like that. But that's what I'm doing, is doing that and also enjoying the fact that my granddaughter's in New York.
Shout out to that. That's love. Me. I'm a soccer dad. So both of my sons played in the tournament this weekend, and it was like really intense games. We almost got in fights at both of the games, but and they went to Cameron went to the championship and lost in overtime, pretty much. So they do. Oh, God, they have penalty kicks. So what they do is you got to. Is one person faces the goalie and he just kicks it, and then they do it with all 5 players, and whoever has the most wins at the end of the game. So they lost by 1 kick. So it was a really, really good game. They was a little upset, but they came in second place. But I watched them just will themselves into playing that hard. They was down by 1-0, but then they tied it up. Then they was down 2-1, and then they tied it up, and then they went to overtime. So they was fighting the whole way. And the goalie on the other team really, like, he made an amazing save for them to win by that 1 point. Because our goalie, who's like, he's damn near professional. And he kicked the ball and it almost went in. The goalie tapped it and it hit like the top, but it didn't go into the net. So they won by that, really pretty much that 1 goal. Wow. So it was dope. And then Keston he was just having a good weekend. He played with 2 different teams this weekend. And ended up coming in second with one of the teams.
So you have an eventful time. People who are in youth sports, it's almost like this is like grown.
Oh no,
people.
It's a thing.
It's grown people. I hear it's very expensive.
It's very expensive. Yes, very expensive.
For real. I mean, my friends are like, wow, like, and what happens is with a lot of, especially friends that I have that they don't have a husband or a boyfriend or whatever, or family that really supports them. You never. It's hard to think about people who don't have family that supports them at all. And I have friends that have that, and then they got their kids in 3 things. It's very difficult. They run. They never have time at home.
Yeah, they don't. Like, you want to do stuff, and then you get up, You got to drive an hour, 2 hours to the game. That's 6 or 7
What
o'clock
happened to
in
the
morning.
van? It used to be that you put the kids on the van and they go and they come back and their leg is broke and that's it.
Ain't no van. It's you get your kid to the game. And
shout out to my father because he probably say no. It wasn't that he might have rode on the van, but I followed the van because he did.
It was tough though.
My thought of the day today, I tell you, man. I mean, you know, I said this. I think last week I talked about being so ready for this election to be over with. Because, you know, I feel like at this point, I'm starting to feel that feeling that I don't want to feel, and I fight against it, of just not wanting to communicate with, be in relationship with people who I think support something that I know is very dangerous for me, especially as a woman. And I think at a point in life, we all come to a place where, you know, we have to think about ourselves too, right? Like, yes, we think about the greater good of everybody, but then we also think about ourselves. And I kind of feel like I sit in a place as a black woman where for our entire existence, we as women, especially, you know, as black women, we have always had to consider everybody in every decision that we make. That's just the way it is. We've considered the whole, not just black women, black men, and our children, but we've considered white folk and other communities. Like, that's just always what we have done. If you ever look out at protests and, you know, things like that, like advocacy or whatever, you will always know that, especially at a protest, if you just count the number of people, women generally will outnumber everybody, you know, we'll outnumber everybody, black women. We just do. That's always been our role. And so then at some point you kind of sit back and you look at yourself and then you're like, okay, what do we also need in order to survive, not just succeed, but to survive? And when you do that, it makes you start to look at people around you very different, you know, because then it's kind of like, well, how would you have my best interest at heart? And I feel like, you know, I, in this particular moment, am starting to slip into a place of not wanting to have relationships with folks who I know have heard and understand, and it's been articulated to them well enough why this particular moment and this particular election season is extremely dangerous. And I was sitting back thinking to myself, I don't like this division of black men, black women, and I want us to be real careful about it. I think that as a black woman, I am not a black man, so I see men like you and others speaking on some of the issues with black men, and I think that's okay because there's going to be a difference of opinion. People are going to have however they feel. But in the shoes that I sit in, when I have people out there in the world who are clearly very, very, very much so targeting me as a woman in their talking points, in their campaign, in their ideology, in their agenda, and other folks are not looking at that saying, well, this is a problem for me, or at least I'll speak up about it, right? I think one of the hardest things has been to watch folks give and to repeat or to talk about their feelings about this particular election. And I'm not just talking about black men. I'm talking about all communities. I hear people talking about their feelings about this election, and they never even mention, well, one of the things that I don't like, or one of the things that I am very uncomfortable with, is this idea that we as men, and especially white men, have the right to make decisions about women's bodies, right? I don't even hear that. And I had a conversation with a friend of yours, actually, about why, when I look at your social media, every day I see you disrespecting Kamala Harris the same way that this white man is. Calling her stupid, calling her dumb, calling her an idiot. I don't understand why that's okay for you as a man, period. I don't care whether she's black or not. I do not understand why men, right, all men, do not look at the disrespect of a woman and say, I don't care if she's black, white, green, or orange, but especially if she's black. I'm not okay with that. And it's certain language that I will never use to describe any woman. I'm not going to call you stupid and dumb and an idiot, right? I'm going to, I might say, I don't believe that this woman is prepared to do this job. I don't believe that she has the skill set. But you know what happened? I sat back and I realized that some people are really limited in their own thinking. Like their own IQ is not that high. So the only thing they know to do is to disrespect and degrade other folks.
And that's why they're attracted to Trump.
Right. And then that's what made me say, I am in a space where I don't think I can continue to have relationships with certain folks that I realize don't really respect or love or even care about women. They might like you as a friend that they see and talk to from time to time, but they don't respect you. They don't respect your leadership. They don't respect us and the challenges that we face as women in our society. And the last point that I realized is like, wow, how can I expect men in general, again, this is not a black male thing, it's just men in general, to respect women when there are still denominations, even within the black church and other places, that don't even have women in the pulpit, that don't even have women in positions of leadership in their churches. So I just, I don't know, it's a long drawn out thought, but I feel like I'm at a place where, wow, I said I wasn't going to let this happen, and now here we are, and I know there's certain people I can't continue to have relationships with.
I mean, that's a real thing, and I think, what I also think is we have to teach and allow people to grow to a certain degree. And you don't have to be in that season or that space, right? Because what I had to learn is about patriarchy and misogyny. I had to learn what that was. I didn't understand what it was. And as you learn and you grow and you realize how that affects not just you, but the people around you, right? The woman that you say you respect. When you speak about a woman in a manner and not acknowledging that your mother or your sister or your grandmother or your wife or just people that's close to you, this is a reflection of how they might think that you feel about them, right? It's innate and deeply, how we say it, covertly, this is actually how you feel. You don't express it to them because, no, these are certain people that you actually value because you're in close proximity to them. But as a whole, you don't really value them. So, like, when you have a conversation and you saying that Kamala is not prepared or she's not qualified, for me, it's like, I don't even know how that conversation comes out your mouth, because when you look at the accomplishments that this lady has.
Well, they say she slept her way to the top, which is what they say about me, which is what they say about almost every
But that's what I'm trying to say. Like,
black woman.
What is that ever? What is that? But the thing is, she's not sleeping by herself, right? So that's what I'm trying to tell you. So when you say she slept her way to the top, there might have been people that was lower than her that she probably slept with that she helped to get in position, right? There might be the dynamics of who you deal with. Always relationships help certain things, but you are qualified and prepared when you get to the top, right?
Well,
so
but that's
and I'm not saying she did
no,
or
I'm
didn't.
not saying that you're saying that
the whole thing I'm trying to say is, when you look at somebody who went from being a lawyer to a DA, right, to being a senator, to being all these things, those things you don't just get in those positions, right? You don't just keep those positions. You don't just innovate certain programs. You don't come up with ideologies and things that are the first groundbreaking in your arena because you just slept your way to the top. No, that's just not a real thing. It's just not a real thing. And the fact that you can say that, and when you look at the person that she's running against, right,
who has no accomplishments,
has no accomplishments. It's just like, this is somebody who is born with a silver spoon and was given money, and made a couple of lucky things, and for the most part hasn't even excelled at that, right? They've been able to scam and trick you, right? This is what it is. It's like when we look at the era that we're in the era of the troll, right? The troll is successful. I can name you 5 dudes that's millionaires on the internet that can't even survive in real life. Like, dudes that you look at on the internet, and these dudes is supposedly popping. In the real life, in the jungle where I had to survive, these dudes could not survive 5 minutes. They could not go through the trenches. They could not go through what it takes to overcome and go through trials and tribulations and come from nothing. They just couldn't. They were not prepared. They aren't prepared for that. So when you look at this, the person who she's running against, that's one of those individuals, right? That's one of those individuals that never really was faced with adversity. That's always had something to bail them out. That's always had somebody to bail them out. So when you compare the two, it's like, and then you try to downgrade or belittle her. It's just like is just insane.
It's insanity.
It's insanity.
It is.
So when you realize that, you just have to say that people evolve at different rates, and some people, it's gonna be some people like just like when we talk about Uncle Luke, right? We talk about D.L. Hughley. These were people that had sipped the tea at first and had to come back and apologize.
Right,
later,
that's right.
Right? They actually had to come back and say, damn, I brought into what they said about you. And I started doing my research and I started listening. Then we had a conversation. I was like, damn, I was so wrong. You know, everybody can't see the forest from the trees.
Yeah.
So what I try to give a lot of people grace because I know that a lot of people are not leaders to me. And understanding that when you're a leader, you have to come from a position of leadership and say, I know you don't understand. So I'm going to be a lot more patient with you. It's going to be a time where my patience wears thin, but right now I'm going to walk you through and I'm going to educate you. I'm going to give you all the information for you to change your perspective or be able to make a knowledgeable, understanding of what you're saying.
Yeah.
But until then,
well, I try to do that.
I did my best.
I try to do that with another one of your friends that you love and I love as well. I try to educate, but I just know that it's a very interesting thing when you see that a lot of people don't know that they just have a lot of misogyny in their heart.
Yeah, because misogyny is embedded within this culture. You know what I'm saying? It's a white supremacy thing. And black men who want to have power, they feel like that's what they need in order to have power.
You have to put somebody down in order to rise.
Yep.
So, we could go on because I got a lot to say. But I think we got to do our TMI because our guest is coming in and we got a man with a very important schedule in New York City. And so I wanted to do this TMI today because when I woke, let me tell you, we have the right to change our minds. Isn't that something?
That's a fact.
We have the right to evolve in seconds. In
milliseconds.
In the hours of a day, you can actually evolve. I thank God for evolution. I thank God for the freedom to start one way in the morning and later on that day say, you know what, I thought about that, I processed it. And that's why it's important. I get that we want to speak because there's things happening and you want to speak. But sometimes it takes a little while to digest and to sink in. And once it sinks in, you might come back with a different response. So check this out. On my TMI today, I want to talk about Young Dro. What took place on the Breakfast Club. He was on there with T.I. They obviously had some other brothers with them that were in the studio sitting on the couch, in the room and watching the show actually in their space. And I know you saw this and many people who are listening saw Young Dro was attempting to explain about his addiction issues and overcoming addiction. And let me just say, very important to say, even in this process of writing this book, and I know I've talked about addiction many times because I feel it frees me a lot to get it out. It is not easy. The first time that I actually said it or wrote it and put it out there in the world, I literally felt like I was going to puke. Like I felt so scared, right? The stages of going to rehab and all of that shit is terrible. It is very, very hard. And trying to articulate it in public, I would imagine, especially as a strong man, and trying to articulate that in a room with other people, it is not easy to do. On camera, knowing a bunch of people are listening. Mm-hmm. So Young Dro was trying to, he was articulating his story, and they laughed, they joked. As he's trying to get it out, everybody's being funny, he was being funny. But it came a time when it wasn't funny anymore. And this gentleman who was with them, sitting right behind them, he continued to laugh. Now, I appreciate the fact that the brothers on the set, particularly T.I., shut it down because they was getting ready to get into a fight about him laughing, and they shut it down. But I wanted to just tell you how evolution of the mind. So the brother is giggling back there, kikiing about something that at this point they've moved past the laughing. You got to know when things are not funny anymore. And young Dro was trying to explain his story. He starts talking about his daughter being addicted. At the point that he mentioned his daughter, all bets are off. Nobody needs to be laughing because now he's opening up about some real serious shit. And the young man giggles. And so he turns around and says to him, "You want me to slap you?" And the two of them get into an exchange of, "You ain't gonna slap me, but what you want to do?" And of course, as I said, T.I. shut it down and was like, "Stop it, and no more." Cool. So when I saw it this morning, I was like, yeah, I would have told him I'm going to slap you too. Because this is some bullshit. Like, it's not funny, right? But by the time I sat with that thing all day, I realized, and I'm not saying Young Dro is wrong. I think different people come from different perspectives. I understand his vulnerability. I get it. But what I now am trying to do in my life is think about how can I respond even to somebody else's ignorance in a way that diffuses versus makes a situation go from 0 to 100. So this little thing about I'm going to slap you on air, well, what you going to do? Well, what we going to do? Well, what's in that? And you know how it can end up. Somebody could end up dead. Somebody could end up in a big fight. Friendships are broken up forever. It could be all types of scenarios and particularly violent scenarios to come from that one moment. So my evolution by the end of the day, because I do believe as a TMI that old boy was doing too much in that moment. But I also can see how to turn around and say to him, "Hey man, I'm not joking anymore," is much more evolved than to say, "I'm going to slap you." So I just want to say today, Tamika Mallory grew up in a few hours today. I went from "I'm going to slap you" to, "Hey man, cut it out. I'm serious now."
That's a process. That's a real life process for me, right? Like I've had to evolve in seconds because I take disrespect, very strong because I respect you so much. So when you disrespect me, I used to feel like I had to impose. I used to think my alternative to violence was more violence. Because I understood that if you knew I was willing to be more violent than you was, then you would not want violence with me. So that was my mentality. So now I have to diffuse things that I normally wouldn't. And I remember before it used to make me feel like I'm being soft. And I used to listen to people, my little brothers have teased me, like, "Oh, you soft now. Before you went and deal with that." And I'd be like, and it used to make me feel away. But now I realize I'm a grown adult man. And I'm evolved. And I can think, I can outthink a situation. I know how to protect myself if I have to, but I'm not trying to initiate any violence with somebody that I don't have to because I could just stay away from you, right? I could literally just keep you out of my circumference because if I allow you to dictate my actions, then you control me and I don't control me. So that was a level of evolution. So when I hear you say that, I remember times that would have been my response. But now I know that normally that's my response now.
Yeah, the too much... too much. Okay. The TMI/TMI segment, excuse me. The TMI/too much, you're doing too much segment of the day is we going from "I'm going to slap you" to "chill out," right? You got to learn how to diffuse. And again, we're not saying, I'm not saying that I don't understand Young Dro and that he was wrong, because I don't think he was wrong. I think the other brother was absolutely in the wrong. But at some point we have to recognize that if we don't know how to control our response to ignorance, we could end up killing people or being killed because it could just go that far, especially when two men feel disrespected in an environment where millions of people are watching. So that's it. I figured that on today I could pat myself on the back a little bit because in the morning time I was like, yeah, I'm telling you, I would have got up, I would have said up to 5. I told people, I said, you know what, and by the now I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't think that way.
And that's why they teach us to spend our first judgment.
That's right. That's right. That's in
why
the
social
principles.
Media is so dangerous.
That's in the principles of nonviolence that Carmen Perez introduced us. Kenyan nonviolence, which was Dr. King's principles to suspend your first judgment and gather more information. Which the short version of that is sit still and be quiet for a second. Yeah, you got to be quiet for a second because that's another thing. I don't even know if you have to say, chill out. You could just be quiet and don't speak anymore to see if the person will catch up to the fact that what you're doing is distracting me from a serious situation.
I say that all the time, that there are people in prison for life over things they wasn't mad at 3 days later.
Right. They don't even remember what happened.
They wasn't even mad at. They not mad at none of it no more. But you got life in prison because you reacted off that immediate energy.
We know somebody in prison right now or in jail rather right now. Young guy just, probably had every reason to be upset, had every reason to respond. But to your point, I mean, you said something powerful. Now, the situation controlled you. You didn't control the situation. So you sitting in the jail over something that if you could do it all over again, you wouldn't even be having the first conversation that led to the second conversation, let alone the second conversation. Yeah. It's just we got to do a little bit better. And I do know one thing, to circle all the way back to my granddaughter, they learn what you teach them, what you do.
Not what you say.
And me and my son will say to me in the drop of a dime, we be out somewhere and he'd be like, all of a sudden, you just let people just do and say anything to you. And that's because he grew up with me as a young girl who, wherever we was at, if anybody did or said anything, we was yelling, I'm getting it popping with him in tow. And so he learned that behavior. So now trying to do things different with my granddaughter, that's not what I want her to see as an example of how I respond to things. You know what I mean? So that she could learn it different. Because sure enough, my mama taught me how to pop off when it was time to pop off.
Mine's did too.
Listen, let's get our guests in here. We don't want this brother to leave us, but I appreciate this show and how much it does for us to be able to talk and learn and evolve together. So let's bring our guest today is absolutely no stranger to our show and just to being out in the streets. I know earlier today y'all were out together somewhere, my son and our public advocate, Jumanne Williams. Y'all were out with K-Bane out in Brooklyn. At the Human Justice March.
I think he marched to Queens, man. They marched all over 14 miles.
Indigenous Peoples Day. Yeah. That's what's up. And Jumanne, I feel like, for us, we always have friends that are doing incredible things on this show. Last week, we had Joy Williams, who right now, when I look at the insights of how many people watched what she was talking about, we're up to like 60,000 people who paid attention to this woman talking about a journal that she has created on a voting plan, like how to create a voting plan. So people are paying attention. Yeah, and I say all the time that in chaos, we have found one another, which is a beautiful thing. As unfortunate, it's painful because I think the first time I met you might have been a protest, might have been something hot.
Probably.
When's the first time you met Jumanne, my son?
It was at a protest. I don't remember exactly, right? But it was definitely at a protest.
Yep, absolutely. So we appreciate you for being with us.
Appreciate being here. This is dope. Man.
It's really nice, right?
That's what you've been to?
The new digs. The new digs. Nice. Yep, thank you for coming by today.
I didn't get the orange memo. My apologies.
Me neither. I just put it on and she just copied.
Listen, I didn't copy. I just got dressed and that's that. But I think great minds think alike. So Indigenous Peoples Day today. We don't celebrate Christopher Columbus Day.
Only acknowledge is Wallace.
There you go. And Rios and Wallace. That's it.
Right.
And my little brother.
But I think in this time that we're in America, when we think about Indigenous Peoples Day, and we know that the indigenous community is still not respected and honored properly in this society, and it just makes me think about how many of our people or people just all over America feel so displaced, so dishonored, so mistreated. And so I do know that while Indigenous Peoples Day is supposed to be this celebratory moment, there are a lot of people who are suffering and who want to make sure that today is about us remembering them and their spirit and their struggles.
No, for sure. And there's a lot of people watching, so I want to be clear. I don't mind celebrating Italian heritage as well. So I just, whoever's watching, they they say crazy stuff.
That's not Christopher Columbus.
Columbus ain't it.
Right.
And the reason they attached themselves to Columbus, because when they got here, they was getting lynched and stuff too. But they always, everybody wants proximity to what they think helps them in America. So they try to attach themselves to this man who never discovered this country and usher in some of the worst genocidal massacres we've ever seen. So I don't mind celebrating that, but we have to celebrate Indigenous People's Day, and we have to do, there'll be anything attached to Christopher Columbus at all. Like it's insane. I guess it's not, because we are pushing somebody to be president that probably comes in that same vein. But to be celebrating this person the way we do, it's incredible to me. We're even, first of all, we're celebrating him on a lie. Like he didn't even do the thing that he said he did. Like
right.
He never set foot on. It's a whole lie, and then the things he did was just horrendous. And people look at folks who are saying, "Look, let's just not celebrate him. That somehow we're crazy." And
so you experienced that?
People it's just wild when you say, like, "I just don't want to celebrate that man." Oh, you this and that. What are you talking about?
Right.
Like, why would you celebrate this person?
Exactly.
There's a local council member. I haven't really said anything because I don't want to make it hot, but shout out to Justin Brannon. He just, unfortunately, he got kicked out of the Italian, what is it? The Italian in city council.
A club.
The club. Yeah, they kicked him out.
Committee.
Uh-huh. Just because he said, let's try to celebrate Italian heritage, but not this man. And they just kicked him out.
Wow.
But shout out to him for standing tall. I hope I don't get him in more heat for saying this, but I want to be like, I recognize that, and that's not easy to do. But the fact that somebody can just say, I don't want to sell a murderous, horrific person and attach that to my heritage, and somehow that should be the norm. That should be what we're doing. And so it's all, but it's unfortunate. But I see where we at now in this country anyway. So it kind of tracks.
Makes perfect.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my question. Like, in this season as a black man, how are you feeling? Because we are dealing with so many different things. We're dealing with this presidential election. We're dealing with someone who's damn near Christopher Columbus, right? The modern day Christopher Columbus. And you being a public advocate, a part of a government, like, how are you feeling, and how are you, like, what are the thought processes that you're having?
I mean, it's just stunning to me to see a Donald Trump, like, and he's getting, quote unquote, darker and darker as we get close. Like, the things he is saying are just, like, he's not, like, I'm just saying whatever can give you permission to dislike who you dislike anyway, I'm gonna say that. And it's getting worse and worse as we get there, and it seems to be working for those folks.
Do you want a white man, or no, do you want a black person or a white man? I think you want a white man. That's one of his latest, like, at least one of the latest clips that's out there.
But it's stunning. Like, but he has been who he is forever. Like, this is who he said he was, and the people want it. And you go through history, there's a playbook of these type of leaders that have done some of the worst things in history, and he's playing that playbook to the T. Like, reality is crazy. Did you see this last thing about the hurricanes in Florida? People are literally putting death threats against meteorologists, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the MAGA leaders and Trump are telling these folks that these meteorologists are creating the weather, are changing the weather. Like, what is happening right now? Anything except climate change. But you look at this like, yo, people are literally believing this. Like, I want facts to make a comeback. I don't know if they'll make it before November 5th.
That is definitely
how do you
a
argue
slogan.
With somebody?
Facts should make a comeback.
They should. How do you argue with somebody and, like, this sky is blue and, like, no, it's not? I have trouble figuring that out. Like, I respect people who disagree with me, and we have an argument. But if I'm telling you this, like, this is orange, like, nah, yo, it's black because of such. I don't know how to.
You don't even know how to talk.
That's the space I'm in. That's the real space I'm in. So, you have a question?
No, go ahead.
So no. As a black man, right? When you see, not just somebody telling you, when you go to your page and you go to other page, because my page is full with black men trying to explain to me why they're with Trump. Like, how does that even make you feel?
So what I try to do in these situations, I feel I feel the emotions, and then I try to unpack them, and I try to make sure I'm understanding someone's journey to the space they got through, so I can help because I can help figure this out and the trauma they have. So you know me, I'm part of the Democratic Party. They have been part of the problem. Like there's just no way around that, and being part of the problem has driven some of these black men to these spaces. But I have to when I try to push back, like I understand your pain. I don't understand how you think this is the answer. And so I telling folks, don't jump out of the frying pan into the fire. This is not what's going to be assisted. As I said at the march, whatever issues I have with Kamala Harris, we can have a conversation and we can push her. This man has literally said, I'm going to take the United States Army and crush any dissent that comes out, any protest. How is that an even-handed comparison of problems? I disagree here, but we're going to talk. I'm going to crush any kind of dissent that you have.
Yeah, but see, let me push that, right? Because I think that I was having a conversation with Congressman Jamal Bowman today.
Shout out to the Congressman.
For sure. And I told him that the feeling of conflict that exists within me in this moment is more than I've ever felt in my life. Because on one hand, we say, we can push them. And I know we can. I mean, I understand who we're dealing with. Obviously, I actually know, Vice President Harris. I've met her. And so I know a little bit more about her compassion around certain things. And I also have, as a black woman, I certainly have a lot of hope and belief in what I believe a black woman, especially a black woman from Howard, a black woman who's an AKA. It's a lot of things that, your wife, India, she is an AKA as well.
That's correct.
And there's a lot of hope that I have there, right? And so that's that. We put that to the side. But just thinking about America in general.
Yeah.
Being in a country where students who are protesting under this administration, a Democratic administration,
That's correct,
are being beat up bloody
That's correct.
for protesting what is happening to the Palestinian people. How do we make people understand the difference in these two scenarios when he's saying he's going to crush dissent and dissent is actually being crushed?
Yeah. First of all, you know how I feel. That was all wrong. And the Colombia president, I think, sparked all that across the nation, how she handled that. That was horrific. I think
Columbia University in New York City.
It would have been, and unfortunately, there was a mayor more than willing to act like they were freeing Fallujah when there was a bunch of students who were nonviolently protesting. So that combination of that was terrible. But think about what that would have looked like under the Trump administration. What do you think would have happened under a Trump administration and what they would have used to crush that dissent even harder? And I have that conflict in myself, and then I have to remember, we provide moral balances when there isn't. This man, this is the president. He was the president of the United States of America, and he's running again, telling people that Haitians are eating cats and dogs. His vice president repeated it, was told that it's a lie, and said, I'm going to continue lying about it because it helps me lift up issues. This is what we're dealing with. So on the other side, that's not even a comparison. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to get past that. I know here there's at least a lane of sanity that I can try to adjust. I am tired of having to do the lesser of two evils. I'm really tired of that.
Right.
And I don't know how many times I can do that. But there's an existential threat that exists that I don't know if it's existed before. I know every time there's an election, people say this, but this dude is wild.
Yeah, this is different.
This is some other stuff.
He's gotten worse.
Because that's the only lane he got.
Right.
And people act. I'm gonna say something. I don't want to get in trouble. But
we get in trouble all the time. That's
I know, but they're looking at me. People act like the decisions of what you need to do right now is not real. My staff is gonna get mad because I'm using.
Don't say it. Let's move on.
Okay, but
let's move on.
I'm just saying, when you have to make a decision right now, don't tell me that something is not worse than the other. It just is. You could pretend that it's not. You could pretend, oh, well, this and that. But if you have to make a decision, and this one clearly is worse, don't pretend that this is not it. Just let's not do that, please, because I'm going to say.
We're not being honest with ourselves.
Yeah, that's all. If you God forbid, this is a horrible comparison, but I just have to say, if you was back in the time of the institution of slavery, it's a terrible, I'm not going to say, I'm just saying, but if somebody say, this is the worst one, this is the better one, don't pretend like that's not a difference. That's all I'm saying.
There's a big difference.
Well, there was a difference. The difference was, did you want to go in the house or did you want to be in the field? That was a difference.
Yeah, but
people
let's
had
say,
to make, but I'm just saying, people had to say, well, I'm going to stay in here and I got to snitch in order to stay here, or I got to have sex with master in order to stay here, because out there.
But there was actually, but do you know what the reality is? And unfortunately, there was different masters, right? There were different, and this is
what I'm saying. Like,
there's a reality that there was the master that was like, you know what, I ain't raping none. I just want y'all to do in the field. We're gonna do that, and then there was the one that was gonna beat you and kill you.
This is what I'm saying.
And rape you. And these are realities that we have to deal with, and we still live in America because we still live in America, and America is based on racism. It's based on those realities. It's based on war. It's based on, white supremacy. That's what we live at. Until we completely dismantle white supremacy, we have to navigate it. We have to figure out how the fuck do we navigate through white supremacy. This is what we're dealing with right now.
Don't tell me the one
dealing
like
with, I told people
no, because what's like, I know, like, if God forbid, like, the whole institution should be destroyed, and we should work on that. But at that moment in time, if somebody said, for whatever reason, you have a choice to go to these two, what you described, why would you act like it's not different?
The reality is this, man. I was locked up in prison, and if you was in prison in New York State, if they ask you, do you want to go to Sing Sing or do you want to go to Attica? Niggas is going to Sing Sing. It's a sweeter jail. It's still jail. We still going, but niggas, like, everybody was trying to get to Sing Sing. We trying to make right now Sing Sing. This is the reality. I'm not trying to go to Attica where they got the babies, the white bears got the black babies on their arms with nooses on their neck. They beating you in the shower. As soon as you get off it's the most racist shit that you ever dealt with. This is the reality of what we dealing with. And I tell people all the time, I understand the threat of a Donald Trump. And this is the realest shit that I really sat and thought about. I was having a conversation at the march with a brother today, and I was like, I literally was in the street from the first day of Donald Trump's presidency to the end of it. I was in the streets protesting. I had to fight for rights, people dying. Every day, almost every day, we was on the road having to deal with something, injustice that was happening to our people. I've never experienced that for 4 years straight. I've never experienced anything like that. And I don't know that I have the stamina at this point.
Nobody wants to myself. No one wants to do it.
I'm tired. Like, I don't, why? And now he's more skilled in what he's doing.
And now the Supreme Court has said,
anything he can do anything.
And now he can get the police immunity. When we was outside and we was face to face with those officers in Louisville, under Trump right now, them people could kill us.
Right.
Like, literally could kill us.
Well, the thing is, when we look back at.
Can I just say, I don't want to skip over that to people who are listening, right? Because I can't pretend that this is the answer to everything we ever wanted. I'm just saying right now, there's a effed up choice that we have to make, but it is a real choice. And let's not pretend that one choice is not right.
And it's not that I know you're not saying that Kamala Harris is this terrible choice.
No,
what we're talking about is the Democrats versus the Republicans that we find ourselves having to deal with all the time. It's problematic. I mean,
Absolutely.
We know that. And I think if I was someone listening to us and I didn't hear us say this, I would turn it off because you're being disingenuous.
Yes,
if you do not acknowledge that the Democrats and Republicans alike have some very, very, very significant problems, but this MAGA thing is completely outside of what I think our communities are prepared to handle. And I tell you, in this conversation that I was having with Congressman Jamal Bowman, I said to him, some people feel like we're on the brink of a civil war. Like, that's how people feel, right? And people are really worried about that. And when he's talking to constituents, that's what they're saying. Like, we feel like there is a war that is brewing. And I said, what makes me feel scared is I don't know what side all of our people will end up on. I don't know. I don't know that as a black woman that I can depend on a majority of black men to protect me and to be with me. I believe that I might be with the few, or not the few, but
I believe it's
a
the
lot.
majority.
I don't know about that.
I want to
don't know
believe
about,
that.
I used to think that until
And it's sad that you feel
two
that way,
things
and I can't
happened
tell
to
you
me.
how to
Two things happened to me. The first thing is when I hear my own family members who've been raised by it with the same principles, the same whatever, talking about supporting Donald Trump, that scares me. Right? That's where my majority starts slipping away, because there's certain people that I believe that I could go to, right? Yeah. When I look up and I see people like Lord Jamar, who's someone who I respect and deeply, like, I mean, this was somebody to me who was like an icon, and I see him spreading misinformation.
It's not even, to me, it's not even a misinformation.
Well, it is misinformation.
I'm not saying it's not I'm saying the problem for me with him is somebody that I'm close to as well, right? And I haven't had a conversation because I don't even know how to converse with him at this point. When every word is this bitch and fuck that and bitch, and it's like,
I already told
you're
you
supposed
about
to
that
be the
earlier
God.
today.
This was God body, Lord Jamal, and you're referring to a woman in this manner that you don't have no personal issues with. She ain't do nothing to your mother. She ain't like what? How did we get this far?
But
how did we get this far?
To put that, to go back into my point, my majority is slipping away when I start seeing things like that. When I hear a black man sit in my face, who is a family member of mine who completely supports Kamala Harris, but he says to me, I'm in barbershop conversations, and I'm telling you that more black men than you think, right, are gonna, they're not gonna say it, but they're gonna cast their vote for Trump. And I hear them saying, a lot of black women, I'm not gonna vote for Trump, but I'm not voting for her, right? I start feeling like the majority of those people who we will be fighting with, which, by the way, is not an unusual concept, to be clear, because in our struggle right now, it's not always the majority. A lot of times in these marches, on the front line, we're out there with a lot of people who don't even look like us, more than we are even with our own people. So I'm starting to worry about that.
I would say that I think it will be the majority.
You believe that?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a larger percentage than normal that have the Kool-Aid has been really strong.
Well, it's not Kool-Aid. It's a intentional targeting.
Yes, and it's worked on some folks because of the years of neglect, and this is where the Democratic Party has to take ownership. Has neglected to address
left it open.
And many of us have been saying for a very long time, you are taking these people for granted over and over and over again, and now here we are. Not only that, and I understand this concept, but there are many folks who feel like we have made everything masculine and toxic, everything. And here on the other side, you have a group of folks who are saying, who actually, first of all, nothing is off limits. So you could be the most toxic, whatever. Hey, come here. You could be here. So now,
so calling the woman a bitch every day.
All that.
That's okay.
Oh, that's okay over here. You hate these people. That's fine. You hate them too. Don't worry. You could they allow you to be the worst of ourselves.
Version of yourself, yeah.
But I think we got to go back to this point, and I know you got to go, and I also know that it's a painful conversation because people will get very upset with me for saying it, but I'm just telling you that my experience as a woman, and particularly as a black woman, is that I have been harmed, and a lot of women that I know have been harmed many times by black men. It's just the truth, right? And I said to my son earlier on the show, when I look at some places, even within the black church, and I realize that some of our denominations still don't even allow women in the pulpit. We have more misogyny in our community than we're willing to admit.
And that's true.
And I think that if we were in a civil war kind of scenario, I'm pushing it, but nonetheless, I'm not sure where people would fall because folks want to be attached to or have proximity to what they believe is power.
That's correct.
Or the winning side. And so the few of us would be out there, but as we always are, struggling and fighting on our own. And that makes me feel uncomfortable.
No, you talk. So one, that's a sad reality because I don't think black women have, and we all agree, have ever been protected the way they're supposed to be protected. So I can't take that away. I have my own stories with my own wife. So like that's a truism that we want to hold. And I feel like the majority of people, like there's a difference between the majority and the percentage is way too big than it should be.
Okay, I respect that.
And I think the percentage of folks have just gotten a lot bigger because of all the things that have happened and all the failures of leaders and our party previously.
But what does that have to do, Jumanne, with what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the relationship.
Because you said they feel that they won't be protected.
I don't know that we will have what I believed at one point. It's certain people I just knew would be there.
Like all of this is because I have family members who called me and told me they're voting for Trump. Praise God, I don't think they vote, right? But they
right.
but they're telling me to vote, and they're telling me like all of the things that have brought trauma to them, they are now allowed to express it in the worst ways, and that is intoxicating. All of this is intoxicating. I have been suffering, and you are telling me that you're going to solve that suffering. That is age old. And matter of fact, I'm going to get rid of all them people who have been bothering you and preventing you from getting where you're supposed to go in the first place. Remember, all these people told you they was going to help you. They did not. I'm a strong man. I'm going to solve this problem.
It's like the gang mentality.
I'm going to solve this problem for you. You get me here? And I gave you that check that I ain't even give you. So you have all that stuff combined, and people are like, you know what? Nothing has changed on these other people. He's telling me he gave me money, which he didn't really give me. That's a whole nother thing I've been telling these people. Make sure you're clear. Donald Trump tried to stop that check. It was the Democratic Congress that got it for you. But he not only did he give me money, he's getting rid of these people who have been the problem, even though they have been the problem. That's a hell of an intoxication to hear people, and they're telling people who are in pain. That's why people abuse substances.
Exactly. It's like,
so I get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I want to ask this question before you leave. Obama made some statements, and for me, my personal opinion is that we should be able to speak truth to power to our brothers, right? If I'm seeing that you're doing something wrong, right? If it's just like you being abused, it's like you have a friend that's being abused, and you saying, "Hey, why would you let that person abuse you?" I don't think that's talking down to you.
So, one, also, sister, I just want to make sure I heard you. Like, that's real. I don't want to ignore
no, definitely.
what you're feeling.
Yeah. It's very emotional. Like, it gives me, because it's hard when you love so much. I love black men. Like, I've been fighting for black men my whole life, and I have been in situations where I almost died trying to protect black men. I have a black son, I have a black father. My whole life is about, and you know how much I love the two of you and all the brothers around me. But I have to, at some point, as I said to my son early today, start thinking about myself as well.
Yeah,
right?
no doubt.
And this is a reality for me. I know that while I'm not saying that a white man wouldn't do it to me, but my proximity has been to black men, right? And so only thing that I don't even care whether a white man protects me. Only thing I care about is because I feel like if we going out together, then hey, that's it. And when I start to see, when I go on Facebook, Instagram, and other things, and I see black men that I respect deeply saying, she's a wench, she's stupid, she's an idiot. I'm
answering that question, but think about why. We have seen people, their proximity to power. So we have seen folks say, I'm going to show you I'm just like you. So I'm just like you, which means I'm going to call my woman this thing. I'm the man in the house, and this is what it looks like. I love Christopher Columbus, those LGBT folks and all this. I'm with you. So to show you I'm with you, I'm going to mimic and do the things that you do. And so that proximity to America and what has brought certain communities power is an intoxicating thing. I see people with the thickest accents from the Caribbean screaming at other immigrants. It's the wildest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what's happening? And then like, they want proximity to show I'm just like you. And so that's a real thing. So that's a conversation we just have to have because you're not the only one that's feel like that. And that's real. With the Obama conversation, For me, it didn't hit me as hard as I heard people think. Like, it probably was real conversation, real talk. I will talk about whether the strategy is correct right now, because we are so close to election time. Think about when you were doing something wrong. If somebody comes and start pointing out you right now, it might take you a second to get there. Like, your response might be a defensive one really quick, as opposed to I'm open and ready to receive this. So if we're trying to get people whose mindset is not correct, they may not be ready to receive. Like, that message might not hit the person, my family member who's talking about voting for Donald Trump. That message probably won't hit them in enough time to get them.
So how do you think the message should have been delivered? Because I've seen people deliver it in every way. So give me a message that you would give to black men right now that are telling you they're voting for Trump, that you think will resonate with them, that they would say, "Damn, you know what? Let me consider it."
So one, I think a lot of it is about turnout right now. Mm-hmm. So I think, first of all, just Obama being present is a helpful thing, and I think we have to really talk about your masculinity is not what the problem is. That's not what the problem is, and you can be a black man in this tent, and she will allow you to do this. Like, you have to talk about that. Just talking about the misogyny right now, which is real, but telling the black man who has been sort of intoxicated by this other message that it's your misogyny. That's like when you telling a white person, "Oh, you're racist." That's why, like, automatically I might just shut it down, even if it's true. So when I'm talking to white people about privilege, I try not to use the racist word, because then I'm like, you think I'm calling you racist and I didn't. You might be, so I don't take it off the table. But that wasn't part of the conversation. So I try to talk about what's going on in life, how you show up, how I show up. What does that mean in America? That's a conversation. So I need to talk to you, just black man, and what we're facing, what you're facing, what is the issues in your life right now, who's going to really assist with that. And that man didn't give you a check. That's a real conversation. That people believe they got a check from Donald Trump, and they did not. First of all, they got tax people's money, and Congress is the one that passed. Donald Trump tried to hold it up to get his name out there. I think those are the conversations, and getting people right now who represent quote-unquote masculinity, I think will be helpful. That Bruce Springsteen thing was dope. I think particularly for white men to see the boss out there. You need to get some more people like that represent.
That's the strategy. Yep, I said that. We definitely got to have masculine men that represent a level of masculinity that we don't see in the party.
Right now, it's got to get people out on November 5th, and we can't mess up the strategy. So I don't really think his message was all that bad, to be honest. I see people responding to it. I think the strategy of it right now may not give the impact that we want.
Well, just to be clear, again, there's a targeting that is happening of black men on social media, and people need to know that, so that when you feel this visceral reaction to things, you need to know, like, why did I see this, right?
That's true.
And the reason why I'm saying that is because I saw a clip that I forwarded to a number of brothers that I saw in I wasn't going in your Wild Wild West comment section, but I saw some of our brothers in there trying to explain to you why Obama's comments were, harmful or how they made people feel. He was talking to Republicans, tearing them up. And people were like, we never heard him say that. He was saying, when did this become okay?
Wait, say that again?
He was speaking to some Republicans, different time, same couple of days that he's outside. He's talking to white folk. And he's like, when was it okay for lies and, people are telling you over and over again the things you're saying it's untrue, it's been proven, and they're still lying. When was that okay? I understand that there are people out here who don't agree with me. They never agreed with Obama. But now you've got a liar who's out here parroting hate. When was that okay for you as a Republican? Answer that for me. Like, the way he was speaking, he's never done that. But I've never heard him do it, right? It was a tone that he had. He wasn't all crazy and, speaking like you and me, but but he still was making a very powerful point that people have not heard him this way. And it's in the comment section, folks, like, oh, Obama's pissed, right? Even Michelle She was off the chain at the DNC, so you clearly know that they have an energy about them. But this is what I just want to say. I think the problem with President Obama is not what he said. It's not who he was even talking to. I think the problem is that when people do not see you in their community until you come to chastise them about something that they're doing wrong. Like, all of a sudden, it's election time and everybody's out here talking about misogyny and this, that, and the third. Misogyny been going on.
But I don't agree with that. That man was in the White House for 8 years, and he dealt with that. They called him tar baby. They called his wife a man. They disrespected his children.
Those are things that happened to him.
So what I'm trying to explain to you, for 8 years, he earned the right to be able to come and say, okay, so how do you, as a black man, allow this man to disrespect you, and then you say you're going to support him? I think after 8 years of dealing with what he dealt with, he has the right to say that.
I'm not saying I disagree with what he said. What I'm telling you is that if Jumanne, when you ask Jumanne, what would he say, right?
No, I respect what he said. And what he said was beautiful.
What I'm saying is the reason why more black men or black people might listen to you and what you're saying is because you're touchable. You're reachable to them. So they feel like when you say things, you're not talking down.
That's not true, because they'll tell you that they don't see Jumanne. Listen to me. I'm outside with Jumanne.
Am
I lying? This is the truth. We outside all the time. They're like, where's Jumanne at? I don't see him here.
That's not
they say that about me. Listen to me. I'm on the internet. I'm outside every day. I'm in the community. Niggas like, you ain't outside. Well, you won't do nothing in your community. I'll be like, what are you even talking about? The internet will make up a story.
I would say we have to be careful about how much we're asking of our leaders all the time, because sometimes we're asking a lot more than other people.
I'm not saying that he has to do it all. I'm just saying, if it were me and I was putting him in that space, I wouldn't have put him in there with cameras. I would put him on the road before today to not 30 days, 6, 4, 20 days, whatever the days are. I'm saying that this problem has been an issue.
That's a fact. Misogyny,
and so therefore,
it was a part of Hillary. I'm not a Hillary fan, but it was a part of it.
So what I'm saying is, I am not saying that the president, I don't think he said one thing wrong. I'm saying that the strategy has to be that we cannot wait until days before the election to go out and do that work. Maybe he is not going to be, like you said, moving around everywhere all the time, every day, but he certainly can have ballrooms of men that he's talking to twice a year, that we can see, him being, he can do that.
And the only other thing I would say is, when you're saying these things, we have to have a conversation with empathy of why the person is feeling that way. And I think that would help it as well. Like,
you gotta add that.
You gotta add the, like, I understand why you're feeling this way, but here's what the issue is. Because when you ignore the pain and the trauma, then you're not gonna get through to the person. And right now, we really just coming in hot. I don't know that it's going to.
That's my point.
Yeah, I don't think it's
that's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that there's some work that you have to do before you're at the point of telling somebody what they're doing wrong. There's some other work that has to happen so that people are able to accept it a little bit better, right? And I know what you're saying, my son. Some people, it doesn't matter. I just want to say one thing because you got to go. So we're talking about her being a woman, Kamala Harris being a woman in the misogyny, right? But you also have a disability that you talk about publicly. I wonder if you feel like you also, as a man, even though you're a man, dealing with trying to do your job and also to rise in your political career, that disability is as harmful, even as a man, as a woman trying to run for office and increase her or grow in her political career?
I think everything is intersectional. So I think if you're running as a black person, you're going to have some problems. If you add in a black woman, you're going to have some problems. If you add in with a disability, you're going to have some problems. Thankfully, I was raised by a pretty strong black woman. There was just no real excuses, whatever was going on. So that actually has some negatives too. It's another conversation. But I think on balance, it has some positives. So I help you navigate through life. So yes, my most interesting times is if I'm on Fox, like all kind of stuff
that people say.
Woo, it's crazy after Fox. But yeah, I mean, the disability, the Tourette syndrome and whatnot is a thing. So I can't pretend it's not. But it's also helped inspire folks in a way that I would have never imagined. There's people who've run for office, literally, because they saw me run. Like that gets me a little emotional when I think about it.
That's right.
Like that's crazy that you saw me do something and now literally told me I didn't know I could have Tourette's and run. I ran because I saw you. That's some mind-boggling and mind-blowing.
Wow,
stuff.
that's deep, Jumanne.
It's I'm not gonna get me.
Well, listen, we have
thank
a
you
president.
so much. I
The
wanna
presidents
make sure
might have
that's a
Tourette's.
clip
The
today.
president gonna have Tourette's. Jumanne.
You gonna be the president?
Jumanne, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know about
It's
Jumanne.
happening to
It's
you,
happening.
and you getting out of here.
We just wanna give
without
you your
having to
flowers,
talk
man,
about
Jumanne.
New York City politics, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's
So
okay.
good.
Because you
That's
need
okay.
to stay low and stay
But
balanced.
I'm just asking the question: if the time comes, are you prepared to be the mayor?
You have to be prepared to be public advocate. So in every scenario, if someone becomes public advocate, you have to be prepared in case something happens. It's not something that you want because that means something bad, man. But I'm more than prepared to make sure the continuity of government continues, that people's trash gets picked up, that 9/11 gets answered, 3/11 gets answered. That's what people really want to hear. But with that, people, there's two separate conversations. One is the mayor has a presumption of innocence, has a right to vigorously be defended, 100%.
Right.
There's a separate
Great.
question of whether you can hold that weight and be able to govern the city the way it needs to be governed. And criminality aside, the judgments that was made on the things that we all agree happened is also criminality, not another separate conversation. And those are real conversations.
Shout out to our public advocate, Jumanne Williams.
I think we could have probably talked to Jumanne a little bit more.
All night, because I had some stuff to say.
Yeah, I kind of felt, I don't know. I feel like we're all trying to do and say what is best in this moment because he's right. Like everything you say, people are going to use as a reason to either feel inspired, which is what we want, or to feel like this is an excuse for me not to go do what I need to do on November 5th or beforehand. So I can feel that tension. Like he's like, my team is telling me to be careful because you talking about tearing the whole thing down. There's some people who will try to use that as a way to be like, well.
I get it. I just think for me that we're in a time where like I said it the other day, like there got to be lines drawn in the sand, right? And trying to make people like you that don't like you, it's never worked for nobody. It just has never worked. And some people like today, Kamala released, agenda for black men, right? And before they said, what is her policies, right? What are the tangibles? What is she offering to black men? And then these same people still have excuses. So it's like they're not looking for anything that can change their mind. They're just going to be contrary about everything. And you have to understand that there are certain people, I believe there are a demographic of men or people who generally just want to make sure that policies fit them, that there is an agenda, there's tangibles. They feel like, the Democratic Party has left us out and haven't given us tangibles. But then I think there's people that just want to be anti, right? So when I'm listening, the majority of people that we are in conflict with, from my perspective, there's one or two people here or there that they were like, well, I don't know or agree with this, and I don't agree with this, and they have certain points. And when you have conversations, there's a dialogue back and forth. Even if we agree to disagree, they're listening to facts, right? They're giving you their opinion, but they're not trying to deny facts. When people are denying facts because they just want to be contrary to something, I don't have the time for that type of dialogue. And those type of people, I know they're not going to be with me, right? So I don't have the energy, or I'm not even trying to push you to be with me. I'm just going to grab the people that's with me and continue to build with them. And that's what we have to do in this moment. I think there's some people that's too far, and a lot of them don't vote anyway. They just want to. They literally just come to the internet just to get any type of energy in conversation from
But
people.
there's some people that are going to vote this particular time, even if they've never done it before, just to be able to satisfy their need to inflict some type of pain on a woman. Like there are people who never voted before, and now they're gonna get up and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it this time." And a lot of time, we didn't get a chance to talk about the trauma that is. Well, Jumanne did touch on it, but there is a trauma associated with some people who have experienced negative or who have had negative experiences with their mother. right? Pain from their mother, pain from a woman that hurt them. You know, I talk about my experience as a woman. I've been hurt by black men, and I'm not talking about he broke my heart. That's not what I'm talking about. I got other stuff that we won't even get into today, because the last thing I want is people out there like, oh, Tamika's piling on, and now she want to talk about these terrible, horrific incidents. But I'm not talking about he broke my heart, he was my boyfriend, and he slept with somebody else, or he decided he didn't want to be with me anymore. That's cool, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real serious harm that has been done to me. There's black men that experience that with black women as well, right? My mother used to tell me all the time, and here I am saying some stuff I ain't supposed to say, but my mother used to tell me all the time that when she used to be like, I don't like that babysitter. Don't leave Tariq there. I don't like the way she looks. I don't like the way she dressed in the house with him. And I'm like, it's a woman. And I remember my mother saying to me, y'all are confused if you think that only men harm children or little girls. Boys are harmed by women as well. So some of our brothers have experiences with women, and every time they get with a new woman or have an opportunity or in space with a woman, they want to repay or take out on this woman what they've gone through. And it just feels like black people need a hug together. Like we need a big universal hug because of the pain that we're experiencing.
I agree.
Or we have experienced.
I agree. I agree that we got to give each other grace. You know, we have to love each other. And that's why I open up every dialogue that I say that I love my brothers, right? And I want you to understand that. So even when I'm pulling you up, right? It's not cancel culture. It's counsel culture, right? I don't want to call you out. I want to call you in, you know, because when I see something is wrong, but we can't ignore that it's wrong. And that was my whole point with Obama. And I hear what everybody says, you know, in this time. It's just, but I'm looking at from the lens that man is looking, and he's saying, damn, I was in the White House for 8 years, and y'all didn't see what they did to me. They tried to publicly lynch me. They discredited me on everything. They went against everything I did. They called me out of my names, and I still walked with my head up, and I still represent us properly. And for me to leave this White House, right, with one of the best approval ratings in history, and then y'all tell me you're going to vote a man that had the worst approval rating in history back in office that disrespects you, and you telling me that you're going to promote and empower that? Like, that's like a slap in the face. That gotta hurt your soul, because I know that me being on the front lines every day fighting for black men, fighting for black women, fighting for black people, and seeing them come attack me for a white supremacist, it hurts. I know he goes to his Instagram page too, and he sees hundreds, if not thousands, because he got millions, and see hundreds of thousands of people attacking him, telling them that this president is better, and it's like a slap in the face. That's why when you hear them speaking, when you hear Michelle, she like, we done went through all this. We know, like we get all it. We tired of the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And we not understanding just how detrimental it is. This rhetoric is. We're not understanding just how serious the times we are in. And I think he understands this seriousness. Like he ain't coming out here just to be the good, hey, you know, we go low. They not with that no more, because they realize we're at a whole different time. You talking about somebody that's trying to rewrite the Constitution, somebody that wants to utilize the military to impose its will on the people. Like, this shit is not a joke. This is not a game because you want to prove, like, this is serious. This is not okay. You know what I'm saying? So I think when you come from that lens, when you that's what I identify. I don't identify with the politically correct, because that's what we're talking about, politically correct. You know, you got to say this to that. I played basketball my whole life. My coaches, they wasn't the politically correct ones. They were saying, you ain't doing shit on that court. He's busting your ass. And if you don't do something, you gonna lose. I'm not here to baby you. You're a grown man. You 17, 18, you're gonna be a man. And in real life, that's how I survived. I was in prison with other men that if I was babied and somebody said it the wrong way, they would have took advantage of me. They would have extorted me. They would have did what they wanted to me. But I had the level of love where men talked to me like men and they treated me like a man, so I was able to survive in any situation.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that the survival factor is tearing at the fabric of our community, and also of of us individually and collectively. Because what I came in here saying today and what's been on my heart since I woke up this morning with it, I went to bed with it. I went to bed sending to a bunch of black women a clip of, okay. I went to bed sending a clip of Simone Sanders' show where she was on with Michael Steele and another woman that I can't remember what her name is. And in this clip, I didn't even send it to any men. I just sent it to all women. And in this clip, it said, it was about Ron DeSantis in Florida wanting to arrest people from radio stations.
I did see that clip.
That allow or that are playing political ads
to vote against,
that would vote against repealing abortion, right? And there's a woman who's sitting up there telling her story in the ad about how she would lose her life, the baby would die, and obviously she wouldn't be able to take care of her daughter anymore if she did not end her pregnancy. And how in Florida, the more the laws have become restrictive, she would not be able to get an abortion. And I sent it to some women that I know are like, either they're not going to vote at all, they're frustrated or whatever. Because there's a lot of women that also don't like other women leaders. They just don't. And when I sent it out, my thing was, Trump is nothing to be played with. This is not a joke, right? So when I came in here today, I walked in here saying to you, now I'm starting to think about myself. I have been, as an activist, as a leader, my entire life has been about fighting for other people and for the majority until we at Until Freedom became very intentional about working on cases for black women. At one point, I was doing most of my work, probably 95% of it, for black men. And all of a sudden, after this weekend, the things that I've watched, the things I've been seeing, the things I've been hearing, the conversations that I've been having, I walked in here feeling like I need to think about myself and my own survival. And I feel like so many of the brothers that I hear are saying the same thing. And that is because white supremacy has caused a situation where people just trying to survive. They just trying to figure out, how can I'm tired. You don't want me to go to prison. This is the way I try to think this through. I'm a black man. You telling me don't go to prison, don't do this, don't do that. But then everywhere I go to work, everything that I try to do to be on the come up, people are beating me down, mistreating me, talking to me crazy. I see so many black men saying like, damn, you go to work, you got whoever your boss is, white man, black person, whoever it is, mistreating you, talking to you crazy, making you feel less than yourself. You go home, you're dealing with the same thing. So after a while, I think everybody is getting in their survival bag, and you and others are still trying to think about, what is this going to mean for all of us, right? And I think that's where the conflict is coming from, and we have to be able to acknowledge that we did not create these circumstances. We're trying to live within them, right? Like, I would imagine that people that hear me say black women are not even in the pulpit in many churches, right? Can't even preach on Sundays. They can only do announcements and maybe read a scripture. And sometimes that has to be done from down on the floor of the church. It can't even be up in the pulpit. That is actually policy in some denominations in their churches, right? And I would imagine that in their mind, it gave the men power. It gave the men power, right? When you ain't got power nowhere else, then what do you have to do? You have to create social constructs within your own community that gives you power. And I think people in their Handmaid's Tale mindset believe that if Donald Trump becomes president, then they have access to power. It's a dangerous thing.
I just think
that you don't get it.
I don't get it at all. And that's what I don't get. I don't get the mind state that makes you believe.
But you do get it, because I just explained it to you.
No, I still don't get it. Like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand how you think that man helps your survival. Because everything he is about is anti-us. So how do you think that when he talks about all of these things he's going to do, and that they're going to positively affect you as a black man?
But that's what they thought in The Handmaid's Tale. See, in Handmaid's Tale, which you said you watched, in Handmaid's Tale, that's what they believed, my son. The black men sided with them white men because they felt like, okay, you're going to put me in the chain of power. The white women agreed to it because they believed that if their husbands were in power and put them in a position of power, that that it would elevate them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there would be a bottom class. So that is what people think. It's not, they think in their mind, yeah, I know the white women knew that they were not being told they were going to be equals.
But I don't understand how black men accept that. I don't. That's what I don't get. I don't understand how black men have accepted that somebody who believes that they are better than you, right? I don't understand how you look at the dynamic. How there's the thing. Every time I think about this shit, it reminds me of the Django. I see Trump on the stage, and I see Tim Scott, and Trump is telling Tim Scott about the I think it's the governor who
Mark Rob, or the man who's trying to be governor?
No, the person who nominated him to be senator. Like, she chose him. It was a lady. She chose. He said, well, she's not going to feel too good, that you're with me, and she the one that got you in office. And he said, he looked at him and said, I just love you.
Wait a minute, hold on. We got to go back and do this because I'm telling Audrey I need more minutes. I need until 6:30 filming, but I understand if you
we only need like 10 more minutes.
will have to. No, we got to go to the beginning of the show. If you will have to get
Why do we got to
off
go to the beginning of the show?
at the same time.
just
We didn't do the
beginning of
TMI.
show. We don't have to do a TMI.
Okay, but I understand if you will have to get off at the
You
same
going to have a 2-hour show?
He has to edit it. Let's go. Keep going. You said Tim Scott. Say every time I think about it, I see Trump, and you needed to think it through anyway, so you could not
I knew
mumble.
exactly what I was
Go.
Every time I think about this scene, that I see Trump on the stage with Tim Scott, and I forgot who it was. It was a woman who was she was running for president in his state, and
You talking about Nikki Haley?
I think it was Nikki Haley. Was it Nikki Haley?
I don't know.
I think whoever it was, she had recommended him. She was the person that appointed him.
Nikki Haley, South
Nikki Haley,
Carolina.
South Carolina, and he was endorsing Donald Trump. He's like, she's not going to be too happy to you, especially when she was the one who got you in office. And he walked up to me, he said, I just love you, Trump. I just love you. And he just looked at him. So every time I think about Donald Trump and I think about the relationship to black men, I think about the scene from the Django, right? And I think about him on the stage with Senator Tim Scott. And Trump is telling Tim Scott about Nikki Haley. He's saying, she's not going to be too happy that you're endorsing me, especially you're from her state, and she's probably the person that endorsed you or whatever. And he walks up to the side of him, and he just looks at him. He said, I just love you. And he might as well have said boss. He might have said boss. He said, I just love you. I just love you. And Trump looks at him like a peasant, and he just walks off to the side. And this is, and when every time I see that vision in my head, I say to myself, how do black men look at that and feel empowered? How don't you feel disrespected? How doesn't that bother you? How doesn't that make your blood boil you when he said, and then the clip that I posted today, I love the black men, I love you. They love me, this and that. And it's like, he just mocks you. He talks about you in a way that's less than every time he can, and y'all still trying to promote him. And it's like embarrassing. So for me, it's like you're not offended by that, but it offends you that Obama could say, why would you let that man disrespect you and still support him? That made you feel like he was talking down to you, but it don't make you feel down when every city that black people
When he could tell you, oh, you identify with me because of my mugshot.
He's
reducing
when he's selling you gold sneakers.
Yeah,
he want to give you a platinum plan.
That don't bother you.
None of that shit
and
don't bother
the thing,
you.
That's the thing, my son, that I have a real problem with some of our people. I notice that they always got some kind of smoke for a woman. They post about her, but they don't know where to find the clips of Trump
and that's
saying
another
the most
thing. And I'm gonna end it.
things.
And I'm gonna end it here. And I think that's pretty much I don't get how black men who claim to be of esteem. I don't get how Dr. Umar. I don't get how Lord Jamal. I don't get how Judge Joe Brown could sit up there and call that lady out her name.
You heard? I don't think Dr. Umar called her out.
Yes, he did. He called her names.
No, he didn't.
He didn't call her B-I-T-C word. He called her wench. He said words. I couldn't believe he was speaking about that woman like that.
Wow. I just, you know what? I don't care what you say. I refuse to believe you.
Okay. Well, when you watch it.
Oh, that just hurts.
When you watch it's kind of disrespectful.
No, kind of.
What did Omar say? I think he said.
Just go back. Keep him out because we don't know.
Okay,
So
well, I'm just gonna say. I'm not gonna say.
Judge Joe Brown, Umar, Lord Jamar. Okay, go.
And this pretty much ends it. This is what I don't get. I don't get how men that we hold in high regard, that have supposed to have, love for our people, like Lord Jamar and Judge Joe Brown, could call that woman out her name merely for running for president because you might not agree with her, her politics. But why call that woman out her name? Hearing Dr. Umar just talk about her in a manner that we don't have to vote for her and she ain't do this and she's a Tom or some whatever he said, he called her some name or Tom or something. It's like, why do you feel that much vitriol for a woman just for running for president? And these are black people that have some level of esteem in our community. And it's like, I understand how you feel. I understand why women don't feel protected, because I wouldn't either. I would not feel protected if I heard men that I once respected and held in high regard speaking on women like black women like that.
And I think it's women in general.
Just exactly.
I think it's women in general.
But you
black women hurts me
because it's a black person, and there's supposed to be a level of brother and sisterhood that people tell me that we not supposed to expect that no more. In this era, as a black person, we should not expect brother and sisterhood no more. Everybody else does. Every other culture does. But black people, we are not a monolith. And all of the words and the trendy words that they use to just keep us disconnected, we utilize them all for ourselves no more. We don't even let them say it. Now we utilize all of these trendy words. So it really bothers me when I see this level of disconnect. And I'm going to keep speaking about it, and I want us to fix it. I'm going to speak about it because I want us to fix it. There's no way that you and other women that we love and respect should not feel valued and should not feel protected by us.
Well, there's that. I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's just important to tell the truth. And with this platform, I have no choice but to say the truth. And I know what the conversations are that I'm having with other black women. They tell me, girl, my man is a good man, because this is not about one-on-one relationships, right? This is not about that. My father's the best man in the world. I'm well protected. I'm well protected by my Until Freedom family. I'm well protected by all of that. But that's not the protection I'm talking about. I'm talking about culture, a culture of misogyny that allows women to be abused, disrespected, degraded, and we have to put on a masculine armor to fight for and defend ourselves. Because we do not, like I said, I got women that's telling me, girl, my husband is a great husband. Because their husband is a great husband. So that's not what I'm talking about. But when I'm on social media, or when I'm out talking to other men, or when I'm on my job, or when I'm at school, and I listen to the way these men speak, I'm scared. I'm afraid. And that's a scary thing.
It's not okay, man. We got to do better as black men.
We sure do. God bless.
And with that said, we come to the end of another episode of TMI. We appreciate y'all. Continue to support us, making us the #1 podcast in America.
Right.
Follow us on Instagram at TMI_show. Send us who you want us to interview. Send us the topics you want us to talk about. This is your podcast. It ain't just ours.
I know. I like that, my son.
That
was good. That's good. That's true.
Go. This is y'all podcast.
We said in the beginning, we'll learn together. We'll be together.
And that's what we're going to do. And with that said, I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mallory's not going to always be wrong. But we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace. We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.